In the year 624 CE, the early Muslim community, led by the Prophet Muhammad, is a small group of exiles. They had to flee persecution in their home city of Mecca, finding a new home in the oasis of Medina. But they were far from safe. They'd left their wealth and property behind, and their old tribe, the powerful Quraysh of Mecca, saw this growing community as a threat that needed to be stamped out. The tension finally ignites when the Prophet Muhammad gets word of a huge Quraysh merchant caravan returning from the north, loaded with riches. Intercepting it could give his struggling community the resources it desperately needed and, at the same time, strike a strategic blow against their oppressors. He gathers a small force of just over 300 men. They're not really an army, more like a small band of believers, ill-equipped with only a few horses and camels to share. But the caravan's leader, Abu Sufyan, was a clever man. He caught wind of the ambush, sent to Mecca for backup, and cleverly rerouted his caravan to safety. The Quraysh, however, were furious at the challenge. They decided it was time to march out and crush the Muslims once and for all. An army of nearly 1,000 men, decked out in armor, and led by Mecca's fiercest chieftains including the infamous Abu Jahl, set out to meet the small Muslim force. The stage was set near the wells of Badr, a desolate valley about 80 miles from Medina. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This was no longer just a raid. It had become a battle for the soul of Islam. A defeat here wouldn't just be a military loss. It could mean the end of the faith itself. Now, while all this was unfolding, another struggle was taking place, one that had been going on for over 2 decades. The Quran wasn't revealed as a single book. For 23 years, its verses came to the Prophet Muhammad piece by piece. In a culture that treasured oral tradition, the main way to preserve these divine words was through memory. The companions of the Prophet became living, breathing libraries of the revelation. They were known as the Hafiz, the memorizers. Tens of thousands of people committed the verses to their hearts, reciting them in daily prayers, studying their meanings, and teaching them to others. This human chain of memory was the first, and most crucial, line of defense for the Quran. But memory wasn't the only tool. The Prophet also appointed scribes to write down the verses as they were revealed. They used whatever they could find: dried palm leaves, flat stones, bits of leather, even the shoulder blades of camels. These written fragments were scattered among the community, acting as a physical backup. The challenge, though, was immense. The Prophet himself was the final authority, arranging the verses and chapters as he was divinely instructed. As long as he was alive, the text was secure. But as the march to Badr showed, the lives of his followers were always on the line. What would happen if these living libraries, the Hafiz, were lost in battle? What would become of the words written on bone and leaf? This was the other, quieter battle, a fight against loss, against corruption, and against time itself. On the 17th day of Ramadan, under the blazing Arabian sun, the two armies met. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, the Muslims had a key tactical advantage. They'd reached the wells of Badr first and now controlled the water. The battle kicked off in the traditional Arab style, with duels between champions. One by one, the Muslim warriors defeated Mecca's best fighters, which was a huge blow to the Qurayshis' morale. Enraged, the Quraysh army charged, but the small Muslim line held firm. The fight that followed was ferocious. The Muslims fought with a conviction that absolutely stunned their enemies. They believed they were fighting for something much bigger than riches or tribal honor. They were fighting for God. The Quran itself describes the battle as a moment of divine intervention, saying God sent angels to help the believers and to cast terror into the hearts of their enemies. Against all odds, the mighty Quraysh army broke and fled. Many of their most powerful leaders, including the archenemy of Islam, Abu Jahl, were killed. The Muslims, on the other hand, suffered very few losses. The victory at Badr was nothing short of miraculous. It was a major turning point. It showed the world that this new faith was not some fleeting movement, but a force to be reckoned with. The victory cemented the Prophet's authority, brought in new allies, and proved that the small community could not only survive, but win. Years passed, the Muslim community grew, but the dual battle for its soul and its scripture continued. The ultimate test for the Quran's preservation came through the Prophet's death. In 630 CE, the living vessel of the revelation was gone. Shortly after, a rebellion broke out, and in the brutal Battle of Yamama, a devastating number of the Hafiz, the Quran memorizers, were killed. This was a catastrophe. Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the Prophet's closest companions, saw the danger immediately. He feared that with the deaths of so many memorizers, parts of the Quran could be lost forever. He rushed to the first Caliph, Abu Bakr, and urged him to compile the Quran into a single, unified book. At first, Abu Bakr was reluctant to do something the Prophet himself hadn't done. But Umar's passionate argument won him over. The survival of the divine message was at stake. The enormous task was given to Zayd ibn Thabit, the Prophet's chief scribe. Zayd understood the terrifying weight of this responsibility, later saying it would have been easier to move a mountain. He began a painstaking process. He didn't just rely on his own memory or the fragments he had written. He sought out every written piece of the Quran, and would only accept it if the witnesses could swear they had heard the Prophet recite that exact verse. He then cross-referenced these written pieces with the memories of the surviving Hafiz. It was a meticulous system of double and triple checking to ensure not a single word was out of place. After months of tireless work, the first complete, unified manuscript, the Mushaf, was created. This master copy, known as the Mushaf of Hafsa, was kept safe. But as the Islamic Empire exploded in size, a new problem popped up. Muslims from Persia, Africa, and the Levant, all with different accents and dialects, started reciting the Quran with slight variations in pronunciation. A companion named Hudhaifa ibn al-Yaman saw these arguments happening on the frontiers of the empire and, fearing it could lead to the same kinds of divisions seen in older scriptures, raced back to the capital, Medina. He warned the third Caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, of the danger. Uthman knew he had to act decisively to protect the unity of the text for all time. He put together a committee, once again led by Zayd ibn Thabit. Their job was to take the original manuscript compiled under Abu Bakr and produce several master copies in the pure dialect of the Quraysh, the dialect in which the Quran was first revealed. Once these copies were finished and double-checked for absolute accuracy, Uthman made a difficult but critical decision. He ordered that these new standardized copies be sent to the major centers of the Islamic world, Mecca, Damascus, Basra, and Kufa, and that all other personal or variant copies be burned. This act ensured that from that moment on, the entire Muslim world would be united by a single, universally accepted text. This final act of standardization was the decisive victory in the long battle to preserve the Quran. Today, ancient manuscripts, like the top copy in Turkey and the Birmingham manuscript in the UK, which radiocarbon dating suggests could be from the time of the Prophet, show a text that is remarkably consistent with the Quran that billions of people read today. The story of the Quran is really a story of two battles fought and won against impossible odds. The Battle of Badr secured the physical survival of the faith and its followers. It proved that a small group, armed with unshakable belief, could overcome a giant. But the battle to preserve the Quran secured the spiritual soul of that faith. It was a war fought not with swords, but with ink, memory, and an intense dedication to getting it right. And because of the dedication of those early believers, the words of the Quran were saved for all of humanity, a testament to their faith and the legacy that continues to shape our world. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe for more deep dives into history. Share this video with someone you think would find it interesting, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.